Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining in this evening. Just let me check if the live streams are on, and wherever you are joining in from, do uh, drop in a hi in the comments so that I know that we are already live. Uh, and I think we are already live across platforms. So, thank you everyone. Good evening for joining on this very special episode of Known Unknown. It's an episode that I am super excited about, and we have somebody that I have looked up to over the years, somebody who's been an inspiration for a lot of people across. So before we get the special guest on screen, I'll give a small introduction of Dr. Boria Majumdar, a PhD in the social history of Indian cricket, one of the most influential commentators on sport on television and radio, somebody who's written over 1,000 articles and columns across newspapers and publications, and is an author of multiple books. The list is so long that I need to refer to my notes just to get the list through. So he's the author of the 11 Gods and a Billion People. He's the author of Sachin Tendulkar's biography, which is Playing It My Way, The Corridors of Uncertainty, World Cup 2007 and Beyond, Indian Cricket Through the Ages, Lost Histories of Indian Cricket, The Battles of the Pitch, Olympics, the Indian Story, and the 22 Yards to Freedom, and many more beyond this. With that, let me get Dr. Mazumdar on the screen. Hi, Boria. Thank you so much for joining in. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Pleasure. I mean, you said your show is called Known and Unknown. Known is you and I are chatting. What is unknown is Indian cricket. At this point, everything is unknown about Indian cricket. What's going
No,
on
no.
between the BCCI and the captain is unknown. What is going on backstage is unknown. What is going on in terms of dirty linen being washed in public is unknown. It has never happened before in the history of Indian cricket. So there are plenty of unknowns in that. But yes, pleasure is mine. It's good to interact with you and everybody who have tuned in from different parts of the world. So thank you very much for having me.
Thank you so much. So everybody who's tuned in, do drop in your questions in the chat box. Also drop in where are you logging in from, so that we are able to understand where are you from. With that, Boria, let's jump in into the questions that I have, and then we already have some questions that a lot of people have already sent across to me, because since the moment I posted it out on social media, a lot of people reached out to me saying, "मेरे तरफ से ये question जरूर पूछ लेना." So that's it. So first question is, considering that you are into the sports, we would love to know about you. What's your background? What's your childhood like? What were your growing up years like, and how did sports come about?
See, sport from day one was part of life in the sense, growing up in North Calcutta, uh, sport was sort of part of us. I mean, Mohun Bagan Club, Mohun Bagan Lane, which is about 2 minutes, 3 minutes from my house. So Kolkata football was big time part of childhood and growing up. Been to Eden Gardens from 1979, 1981 onwards, not missed a single game. Would used to go and watch, and then obviously played cricket and football growing up for school and stuff. Wasn't good, clearly wasn't good, and then it sort of turned into an academic interest. Being a failed cricketer, played table tennis, tried my hands at every kind of sport, and then realized that maybe writing and talking about it is perhaps possible for me. And once I got into college, academically was quite decent. At Presidency College, Calcutta, managed to top the university, and then got the Rhodes Scholarship in '99, 2000. It was always going to be cricket. It was always going to be cricket that I wanted to work on the social history of Indian cricket, which I think is the first PhD on sport in Oxford University. So I was actually asked when I first went to Oxford, "Are you serious?" And I was told, yes. I mean, what are you saying? So, for somebody wanting to work on a history of cricket project was quite strange to start with. Let's put it that way. But now sport has become far more mainstream. A lot of work is happening in the sport management realm, psychology, physiology, history, political, the sociology, anthropology of sport. Lots of work happening. But at a time when I did the doctoral dissertation in 2000, between 2000 and 2003, In India, for example, it was just very noble. So that's how it was. Had it not been for cricket, would I have been able to do a PhD? No, no, because and I've always felt this. I think if you take a look at America, where does athletes come from? The D1 system. If you take a look at the United Kingdom, where is the best sporting facility in the country? Loughborough University. Unfortunately, in India, academia and sport still do not talk to each other. And unless that integration happens, I do not see my country becoming a multi sporting country. So that's where I locate myself, at one level as a crusader, at one level as an activist, at one level as a scholar and intellectual who believes in physical literacy. Not that everybody has to be a medal winner in the Olympic Games or a top cricketer, no, but physical literacy. And that's why I work in the sporting realm. If sport is integrated within the academic curriculum of the school system, so if you learn about Dhyan Chand in class 4, 5, 6, 7, I think India will become a better society with physical literacy taking center stage.
Absolutely, because even the years when we grew up, it used to be sports was always secondary, and the full focus was on ki 10th mein kitne marks hai and 12th mein kitne marks hai. I absolutely agree to all the points that you said. At what point did you say, okay, this is what I want to make a career in? Considering you said that you realized that you were not very good in playing sports, but at what age did you say, okay, this is what I want to make a career in?
I would say around the 10th standard, as I said, I mean, I was sporty, but I was not good. Wanted to excel, didn't happen. Was decent, wasn't bad. I mean, as a cricketer, would keep wickets. Played table tennis for at the junior level. Played state also. Won a state level championship also. Used to play all kinds of sport, but that's what I'm saying. I mean, I wanted to excel in what I wanted to do, and that's not happening with sport. Clearly, was not my area of excellence, if I can put it that way. So around 13, 14, when I was class 8, 9, going into class 10 for my boards and exams and all, and by that time the understanding had started that what, you've got to use the prism of sport to understand society. Loved history. So I'm a trained historian. I'm not a journalist. I'm a trained historian who has studied modern South Asian history, and that's where I locate sport. I use the lens of sport to understand society. That's what I did. Media happened by chance, still is by chance. It's a kind of hobby. Academia is still close to my heart. So when I get bored with academia, I do media. When I get bored with media, find it superficial and flippant, I do academia. So I've been able to manage and juggle that thanks to family and thanks to all the backing that I've received from people like you and friends like you. So it's been rewarding when you are able to wed your passion and your profession together. It becomes a heady cocktail. So that's what I've been able to do.
Got it. So you mentioned so many things that you do, considering a little bit of journalism, media, historian, academia. What is it that you enjoy, and what do you enjoy the most, and why?
I enjoy sport, any kind of sport, watching sport, talking about sport, consuming sport, appropriating sport, writing about sport. So that's what I'm saying. I mean, if I'm sort of depressed, what do I do? I watch sport. If I'm very very pleased, what do I do? I watch sport. Right? I consume sport in all its multiple dimensions. People might think this guy's an absolute moron that he only is talking about sport, but that's what the truth is. Because sport in its multiple colors, in its elements of gray, I think that's what sport is all about.
Got it. One question that I had, and plus a lot of people also said, is who is Boria's favorite cricketer while growing up and in today's generation as well? Whom do you look up to and enjoy?
You see, I've got a very special relationship with Sachin because if you're somebody's biographer and you become his alter ego for 4 years when you write his autobiography together, and when it's somebody like a Tendulkar, I've got 135 hours of Tendulkar on tape. That during the autobiography, right? So if you are living that life, if you are documenting someone's life and you're living that life for 4 years, and even after that, I mean, he's extremely close to me as a friend and family. So favorite cricketer to a degree, Sachin. I'm extremely sort of close to Saurav as well. Make no mistake about it. We were in college together. He was my senior in St. Xavier's, and since then, obviously, we are very close friends. More recent times, lots of people, whether it's Virat and Rohit and Ashwin and all these guys are friends. I mean, I've seen them evolve, attain stardom, become superstars. So, but if the question that you asked me, uh, more favorite cricketer and stuff, Sachin among the contemporary icons. or contemporary greats. Among men, it has to be, the Rohit Virat generation. I'm close to all of them. I mean, if I say Rohit Sharma today, people will say Virat ko gali de raha hai. If I say Virat, he'll say Rohit. I don't want to get into that. As I'm saying, I mean, I've seen these guys evolve. And among women, I'm extremely close to Mithali and Jhulan, who are both very close to me. For me, when I say cricket, I mean both men and women. Huh? I mean, I'm not referring to men's cricket, and that's a conscious call. If you want to call the Virat Kohli team the Indian team, then please, for God's sake, do not call the Mitali Raj team the Indian women's team. Call them the Indian team as well.
Yep, the very important point touched upon, and I think that's some a little change that we've seen over the last few years as well. You mentioned Sachin, you mentioned the biography. You've written so many books on Indian cricket. What's your favorite cricket story or favorite cricket memory that you would love to share with everybody here?
Interesting that you asked me that question. I was still a student in Oxford and was gradually, some of you know, I have a museum in Calcutta. And we are actually now currently working on trying to make a digital museum using augmented reality technology, AR and VR, in collaboration with my partners in Dubai, CrickFlix. We are doing a digital memorabilia NFT auction on the 24th as well. Now, this goes back to 2002-3, and I was in Oxford. And at that point in time on student stipend. And all of a sudden, I got a call from this auctioneer who knew that I was a student of cricket. And he said to me, "Can you come and take a look at this collection that I've just got?" And I was like, "Okay." So I went there, and he had this huge trunk. And I'm like, "What is this?" He said, "Look, just take a look at it." And I opened that trunk, and the first letter that came to hand was a letter that had been written by Douglas Jardine to Tulip Singhji, and it said, "I've figured out a way to stop Bradman, and you need to come and meet me." And the letter went on, and I read it, and I was like, "Wow." And I said, so he said, "This is the entire private collection of Dulip Singhji, and I'm going to auction this and sell it off." I didn't have the money to purchase or buy at that point in time. Remains a sore point. I don't know where the collection is today. Would have been an absolute treasure trove, but that's one of my favorite stories because I wanted to possess it. Now I possess close to 4 to 5 thousand pieces of proper provenance cricketing memorabilia, but that the first one which I missed out will always remain a sore point.
Awesome, awesome, lovely story. And of those thousands that you have now, which is something that you actually treasure?
Two. I mean, one, this had been in the offing for about a year. And every match that Tendulkar played after his 99th 100, he and I had a plan that we'll sort of document the 100th 100 that particular night so that it was still fresh and raw. And that was a chapter in the book. And it wasn't happening. I mean, he had to wait for a year between 2011 and 2012, uh, from the World Cup to Dhaka in Mirpur in 2012. And then when it finally happened, I mean, that particular night, India lost that game at the Sonargaon. His room number was 623, if I remember from memory. He called me around 1 o'clock saying, "Are you awake?" And I'm like, "Yeah." So I went to his room. It was full of balloons and full of cakes. And Sachin was like, and I looked at him and I said, "The monkey is off your back." And he said, "You guys created it. You guys created it." I would get 200 messages a day, so 6,000 a month, 72,000 messages a year saying 100, 100. Now, you guys created this absolute hysteria. And thereafter, he called Anjali because she was in Goa with the children. So she hadn't watched that particular 100. So she was still on 90, 99. And Sachin was on 100. So after all of that, and I said, "Give me something." And it was always decided that he would give me something of that particular 100. So he gave me his gloves with his inscription 100, 100, 114 versus Bangladesh, Dhaka, with the date. So that happens to be in my museum, an absolute priceless piece of artifact. And among the historical ones, I have C.K. Naidu's bank account book and his original passport dating back to the 1920s and 30s. There are many other pieces of memorabilia also, but C.K. Naidu's original bank account book and passport, wow, the bank balance was 306 rupees. Imagine what it would be now. So these are some of the favorites that I have. Also have a Don Bradman bat, which was loaned to me for my museum by another dear friend. So that bat from 1947-48, with which Bradman actually played that series against India, is yet another very interesting artifact.
Lovely, lovely. I just feel that this can go on, and the stories that you have are absolutely, truly amazing. Boria, thank you so much. I also recently read that you just launched your new venture, Rev Sports. So if you can share about what is this venture, you briefly mentioned it, and you also have two new virtual shows that you started, which is Backstage with Boria and Sports Nostalgia. So if you can share a little bit about this whole new venture of yours as well.
Yeah, I mean, it was always going to happen because see, I believe that the sports space in the televisual or media space was getting constricted. For me, sport is mainstream news. If Neeraj Chopra wins a gold medal, where do you put Neeraj Chopra? Front page. So why is it that you have to have a sports bulletin on news television? You can have sport as part of mainstream. And I thought people who do not understand sport were doing primetime TV, for example. I mean, and these people would jump into the Olympic realm or cricket realm when something major happens. They have no interest in sport. They were like these fly-by-night operators coming and trying to take over sport and trying to do work on sport. For me, that wasn't working. And I always wanted to create something for sport which will have legacy. So this is a five-part venture. There's sports tech. Sports technology has to be at the core of it, given the way we are. Sports education. Again, huge possibilities in terms of education and where this country will go if we are able to centralize sport and get people attracted to it. Like I told you about physical literacy, there's this whole NFT, digital memorabilia play in association with cryptics, because anything and everything in this country is now becoming part of NFTs. No, it's not. You have to have a provenance. Digital memorabilia cannot be a random signature or a random photograph. And then obviously there is content. I mean, content is at the centerpiece of it. You've mentioned two shows. We've actually launched quite a few, and there are four partners
Okay.
in the venture. Prantik Mazumdar, who's a top quality digital marketer coming out of Singapore, one of my favorite guys, absolutely thorough, meticulous, superstar, absolute rock star. He's doing a show along with another favorite of mine, Sudhir Tyagi. Anybody who's listened to All India Radio commentary knows about Sudhir Tyagi, one of the best voices in Hindi commentary. Sudhir and Prantik are doing this show called Sports 360, which is a regular show. I do the Backstage with Boria show. We've done Rohit Sharma. So far, 10 million video views, which is not bad for a week. A new channel, a new platform, 10 million in a week is not a bad start. And then tomorrow is Backstage with Boria again. So every Thursday, 2 p.m. Tomorrow is with Saurav. The next few weeks, 23rd is Sachin, 30th is Ashwin, then is David Warner, and then is Kane Williamson. So that's the lineup as of now. We've got everybody, whoever you want from the world. The top names, we've got them for the show. There is sport nostalgia, obviously, where it's basically about storytelling and reliving and storytelling and celebrating the sport in the way that I want to celebrate the sport. Then there is obviously the breaking news sector. Breaking news has to be important, right? Because ultimately in our profession, people want to consume news. I'm known for somebody who will give credible news and talk about news. I mean, the trolls notwithstanding, that I'm used to on a daily basis. So that's another segment. Then I want to bring in fans and empower fans. So we launch a show called the Fan Show, where every day of the week, one particular fan will come and host that show. We've got a Business of Cricket podcast show coming up, and so plenty of content in the offing as part of the new platform. It's called Rev Sports. Prantik is a co-founder. We've got two other partners in Dubai. I don't want to name them at this point, but they're also very much part of the bouquet.
Lovely, lovely. Just the sheer platter that you have, I think, and your whole mission of getting sports into the mainstream is, I think, well on its way. So, with so many things that you do, a very important question comes in that when somebody looks at this, that you are working with the top cricketers of the country, you're traveling across the world, it looks very, very glamorous. Is it that glamorous?
No, it isn't. It absolutely isn't. I mean, if you come to a tour, you'll know that. For example, in Tokyo, to circumvent COVID and the COVID protocols and get all shows out and do your work. I remember one of the days I ended up doing 17 shows in one particular day. It's not glamorous at all. It is absolutely not glamorous. The bubble life, the restrictions, the problems, the news. You've got to be on the button with news breaks and everything. With all the protocol, you cannot access athletes, cannot get them out. Yet you have to do all of it. But it's ultimately about passion. It's ultimately about what you want to do, what you love to do. So in my case, that's what it is. I mean, I don't care what people think about it, because at the end of the day, when I stand in front of the mirror, I've got to tell myself if there is any fuel left in the tank. The answer is no. It comes from deep. As long as it comes from deep, and I want to contribute to sport, I will. I am not interested in accolades, because at the end of the day, you'll take You will be remembered. Rousseau's general will, look, I mean, you don't want 1 million people. You just want your conscience, even if it's one person. If you believe you're doing quality work and you invest in quality work and you stand for quality work, that's what will be your legacy. So, no, it's not glamorous. It's a lot of hard work, but that's what you choose to do. I'm sure every profession is like that. If you want to really deep dive and do your work with passion and commitment, it's no different with sport.
Lovely, lovely. So that takes me on to a similar question. What's the best thing and the worst thing that you like about what you're doing? So considering you, so both sides of it.
The best thing that I like about doing it's real, not real. What you are seeing unfold in front of your eyes, you're able to document history. You are part of history. You are history. For example, there were 15 people in the Tokyo Stadium when Neeraj won gold, and he was 10 meters away from us, and we were sort of shouting Neeraj Bharat Mata Ki, and he was saying Jai. So you were jamming, and you saw what is sport. Sport is a story of modern India, and you're a chronicler of modern India. So that's the good part of it. The bad part of it, these days when I see we are only concerned about winners. So when I go and say, what, India won 19 medals in the Paralympics with 54 athletes, and everybody will tell me, tell us the story of these 19 medalists. What about the rest of the 35? They are equally important and perhaps will win medals in Paris. Are we even bothered about them? This country is only interested in winners and will shower them with gifts and money and everything else. And the vanquished or the loser for that particular night, who's not a loser, who's also an athlete, is completely forgotten. That is the bad part about sport. And as I said, sport is still considered entertainment and leisure and not part of academic mainstream in India. And that has to change.
Absolutely, truly agree. Because just the fact that they are there, be it the Olympics, be it the cricket team, just the fact that they are playing, it's very easy to stand on the outside the boundary line and say, कि अच्छा ठीक है, hook करना था और square cut नहीं करना था. But yes, it is a lot of hard work to be there. Uh, get that. So if there is somebody out there who wants to make a career in sports journalism, what is your suggestion there? What would you advise to this individual?
Just follow your passion. All you need to do is follow your passion. You don't need to study journalism to become a sports journalist. You don't need to pursue anything else but your passion. If you are passionate about sport, committed to sport, and want to know and talk about sport, you can. And now, with the opening up of the digital media platforms, you can do so much more. It's far easier than compared to travel and money and all of it. So, all I will say is just believe in yourself and don't indulge in sensationalist trash. I mean, you open social media, people behind the veil will take pot shots and abuse. That's fine. I mean, just brush them off. If abusing you and making fun of at your expense makes someone happy, so be it. Yeah. I mean, ultimately, that person is wasting time on you. You're not. So it's okay. So don't be conscious of all of that. Just do quality work, something that you believe in, something that you stand for. Try and do multi-sport. Don't simply do cricket because it's glamorous. Try and do women's cricket. Try and do Olympic and Paralympic sport with equal gusto. Because the moment you deep dive into sport, you will know that a lot is happening.
Got it. Got it. If we have to sum up on what is the success mantra of Dr. Boria Majumdar, what is the reason behind all the success that you gained? What would you sum it up to?
Whew. Again, I mean, success mantra is what is the kind of oeuvre of work that you want to leave behind? What is the legacy that you want to leave behind? What do you stand for? You've got to stand for excellence. You've got to try and push the bar. You've got to stand for certain thoughts that you believe in. You've got to stand for ideals that you believe in. That's what you need to stand for. And in my book, I stand for equality, across the Paralympic, Olympic, and cricketing realm. I stand for diversity among, again, these athletes. I stand for empowerment, men and women. And at the end of the day, I'm a storyteller. If I tell good stories, people will listen. If I'm able to mainstream the story of athletes, people will listen. And that's what my job is. No one can be part of the sporting ecosystem in a manner that you are a 360-degree. You're not. At the same time, you're an important cog in that wheel that will make sport mainstream in India, and that's what I want to do.
Lovely, lovely. I think you touched upon three very important points of equality, diversity, and empowerment there. With that, Boria, we have three questions which have come in from the audience. A question from Roshan Das, who says that what will be the key learnings observed from the current Indian test team which can be presented as a case study to students? It's a little technical question, but what do you think is a learning that can go as a case study to students?
How to deal with pressure. Every game that the Indians play, they are under incredible pressure from a billion people. There is intense scrutiny. There are people, 1 billion pairs of eyes constantly trying to probe. So definitely, it's a lesson in how to deal with pressure. Number two, how to deal with failure. Sport teaches you to fail far more than sport teaches you to win. Right? Sport is the only vehicle where you fail in public. Today, if you fail or I fail, it'll be in private. In the sense we've not done well in an exam, so that's a private failure, and you and I will come and moan in private, and then we will recuperate and then come back again. But in sport, if you're getting out for a zero in front of a million people, then you're failing in public and the humiliation is public. But you recuperate, you train with your friends and coaches and teammates and whatever, and then you come back and win in public again, and that is what sport allows you to do. So fail and win in public. And the third lesson is, take the case of Rohit Sharma or Virat Kohli. Now, the point is, everything in human life changes, right? Everything changes. My political preference might change, my dress code might change, my food habits might change, my girlfriend might change, I might have a breakup, my family stuff can change, the priorities can change, monetary status and affluence can change. The one constant in human life is fandom. If I'm a Sachin Tendulkar fan at the age of 6, I will die a Sachin Tendulkar fan at the age of 80. And that is the only constant in human life, which I think is common to the Indian cricket team.
Got it, got it. This also brings me to another question, and you mentioned this earlier that it's very easy to be sitting on a keyboard and behind that veil and putting pressure on the players there. Now that you've interacted with so many of these players, and it sure does impact them when the world is abusing them, when the world is criticizing them. How do you think does it impact them, and how do they handle this pressure?
Not many handle it well. I mean, some people have to take help. I don't want to divulge more because you will watch it in backstage with Boria. People have come out and said they sought help. Some people go back to their families. Some people are strong enough to try and get into a bit of a cocoon where they shut the surround sound and the outside noise. So each of these people have their own little ways of dealing with stuff. Take the case of David Warner, gets dropped from an IPL team, is not allowed to go to the stadium, is asked to sit in the gallery and wave a particular flag, and then comes back and wins the man of the tournament in the World Cup. Now, how does that sort of shape up in terms of a sporting narrative from adversity to triumph? Incredible tale, right? Incredible tale. I mean, think about Sandpapergate. Whole country ostracizing you and spitting at you and killing you and doing all the usual, and then come back and win the respect of the country and love takes a lot of metal, and that's what sport teaches you. So that's what the whole deal is. Did David take it well initially? No. He kept saying, people are outside the family and what will happen to the kids and stuff like that. Was he happy in the IPL space? No, he wasn't. So, but at the same time, you've got to have the metal in you to be able to come back, and that's what he showed us. So that's the whole beauty of sport. If you're not able to come back, because as I said, in sport, 8 out of 10 times you will fail. Even a Tendulkar scored 100 international hundreds in 200 test matches and 463 ODIs, right? So think of the number of times he went out. So 1 in 6. That's failure. Now you have to fail. So that is the beauty of sport, and that's what makes sport, because there are no retakes. You fail in public, and you win in public.
Absolutely, absolutely. Lovely answer there, Boria. We have a question from Amitabh Banerjee as well. He says that you've seen the captaincy of Saurav Ganguly, Mahendra Singh Dhoni, Virat Kohli, Rohit Sharma. What's the difference between all of them? And in terms of similar in media interactions during pressure situations, how do they handle it? So, how do you differentiate their captaincy and their approachability as well?
Uh, each are different. Each are different. MS Dhoni, Virat, Rohit, Saurav. Each one of them are different. Some people are private, like an MS, who's very private. I mean, I've had the opportunity of interacting with him very closely, but he's a private person. With Saurav, there's a different equation. With Rohit, there's a different equation. With Virat, there's a different equation. Each one of them, there are lessons to learn from them, and you have to understand how they are as human beings and what works and what doesn't, how they deal with failure, how they deal with success, what brings success and what brings failure. So each one is a fascinating case study. of human behavior, of how to deal with life lessons. And for me, it's not about win or loss, it's a life lesson. It's a life lesson as to how to deal with adversity, how to deal with pressure, how to deal with the good and the bad together. So that's what sport for me stands for. And each of these people in their positions of leadership, and not necessarily a captain is a leader. Ravichandran Ashwin is a leader of the pack despite not being captain. Tendulkar will forever be leader of the pack despite not being captain. Whenever he was present in that dressing room, he was captain. Even a youngster, Clive Lloyd, told me at the age of 21, he told the West Indian team that don't send a cricketer back because of indiscipline, because that might ruin a cricketer's life. Now that's captaincy, that's leadership for you. So that's the kind of stuff that you start learning, and you start to appreciate that, okay, this is what it is. When a Malcolm Marshall bowls for a Clive Lloyd with a broken hand and goes on to pick 5 wickets, like, wow, that's loyalty for you. So there are these stories at every level that you sort of stand for and appreciate and aspire to, and take lessons from. And that's what makes sports so incredibly interesting.
Lovely, lovely. And we have a last question from Varun here, Varun Mehta, who says, how important is it in sports to have a transparent communication and fair approach between various stakeholders for fostering growth and way forward? He's then gone on to talk about the different sports, about the non-transparency, etc., which eventually does the fans suffer and everybody suffers. So how does that come about?
Come again with the question once.
How important is it in sports to have a transparent communication and fair approach across stakeholders? Because you look at something like the Formula One season closure that happened, and it was all controversial with between Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton, and the various things that keep happening between politics and sports. So how do you go about that?
Don't go too far. Take today. I mean, Virat Kohli comes forward and does a press conference and says a number of things, right? Uh, so that's the whole point, right? So the whole interesting thing is, uh, one has to see. I mean, how things pan out, right? So uh, you know we've got to see how things unfold. We've got to see how things unfold and what the story is. Like, there has to be open communication, there has to be transparency in communication. So all of that stuff, unless that happens, in the BCCI's case today, there is opacity, there is miscommunication, there is clear lack of transparency. The captain is on, saying something, the board mandarins have said something. So clearly, Indian cricket at the end of the day is the loser. Whatever it is, you've got to stand up for the sanctity of that institution, and that's what has to be protected. Unless that is done, the loser is Indian cricket, and that needs to stop. So in every sport, whether it is Olympics, between athletes and administrators, take the Vinesh Fogart case in Tokyo, take Leander Mahesh, take anything. Ultimately it will all boil down to transparency. That doesn't happen, it's a problem.
Got it. Got it. So I think that brings us to the end of the questions with the three people that had pushed in questions. So we had Roshan, Amitabh, and Varun asking those questions. Thank you, Boria. I think that sums up a very, very good session. You've spoken about a lot of things about getting sports mainstream. You spoke about equality. You spoke about the whole diversity, empowerment, and I think that's a big learning that we speak about when we're talking about pressure, failure, everything on those lines. It's been an absolute pleasure the last 35 minutes. Thank you so much. Any parting comments, and then maybe we can wrap this up.
No, all I will say is, follow sport and live sport, because ultimately it's something that this world looks forward to, because it brings in positivity and injects positivity and optimism in people. This is something that is, real, not real. This is something that is spontaneous and impulsive. It's about human celebration. And think of Tokyo. It was the first congregation of the world during COVID. So it's good. Ultimately, it's something that you want to live for. So consume sport, appropriate sport, live sport in every possible way. Yes, there will be controversy and juice and all of that, but let's not be sensationalists. Let's just consume sport. At the end of the day, not everything is about medals won or records broken. It is also about being a part of that cycle, whether you're a fan or an athlete or an administrator, whatever you are. As far as I'm concerned, I've made a career out of it, so we've got to see how things evolve.
Love it. Thank you so much, Boria. Thank you so much for joining in. And everybody who's listening, do drop in a comment on how you liked this session. Boria, I cannot be more thankful to give us this 30, 30, 40 minutes. It's a pleasure, and I think there's a lot to learn. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks.
yeah. With that, guys, thank you so much for joining in, and I will wait to hear your comments on how you love this session. And maybe till next time, thank you so much, everyone, and thank you, Boria. Bye bye.